You're listening to Queer Conversation brought to you by LOTL. American artist Macon Reed creates immersive sculptural environments that serve as sites for conversation and exchange. Eulogy for the Dyke Bar revisits the legacy and physical spaces of dyke and lesbian bars, an increasingly rare component of the gay and queer cultural landscape. Made of simple materials that unapologetically reveal the hand in their making, the work is activated through its use as a fully functional bar and space for public programs.
Hi, my name is Macon Reed, and I'm from New Orleans in the United States, and I identify as a genderqueer artist, and I work mostly in interdisciplinary projects, so I combine sort of a sculptural installation environment and then do a bunch of public programming inside to bring the community together.
Hi, my name's Woolley, and I work in curatorial and public engagement at UNSW Galleries, and I've had the privilege of working with Macon on Eulogy for the Dyke Bar in the public programming and community engagement component. I identify as a bisexual queer woman.
Welcome to Queer Conversations. The installation, tell us about it. This sounds really fascinating. Tell us where the installation is and what's the idea behind it.
Yeah, essentially, so the installation is a collaboration between the University of New South Wales Galleries and the National Art School. So it's at National Art School, and it's actually in their old cafe. They let us sort of transform it into a dyke bar. So when you walk in, it's a really brightly colored installation. We've got this amazing like hot pink and purple wood paneling that we hand painted on the wall, and you'll see a full bar, benches for people to sit, and then there's a pool table. And importantly also, when you are walking through the space, there's this amazing wall of archival images from Sydney Dyke Bar history. So I worked with the amazing people at UNSW to go through the archives and find these party flyers and just documents from Sydney's amazing history, because I've done the project, I think, 6 times in the United States, and this is the first time really getting to do it in another country in full with the programming, and it felt so important to have Sydney's history represented instead of, from the US. So, that's what you find when you walk into the space.
So that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So are you old enough to know what the dyke bars used to look like?
That's a good question.
Yes, I'm probably right.
So this is the funny thing. I went to some dyke bars when I was younger, and like the Lexington in San Francisco when it used to be there, and Henrietta Hudson's and Ginger's in New York, for example. But actually the main thing that sort of drove the project was the fact that I couldn't find any. So I'd moved to Chicago, and Chicago is an amazing queer community, but the neighborhood there, the queer neighborhood, is called Boys Town. There are no dyke bars at all, and I found myself just aching for those spaces, and being surprised that I couldn't find them. And then, I started asking people, why are there no more dyke bars? Like, what's up with this? And what consistently came across to me were all of these stereotypes about that dykes don't want to cruise or have sex or go to parties as much. We kind of just want to stay at home drinking tea with our cats. And I was like, there's no problem. Like, drinking tea with your cats is great. That's, also a good thing. But I started saying well, is that really the case? Because I want to cruise and I want to go out and I want to dance, but there aren't places. And so when I started doing this research and talking to people and found that there are really, and I think in Australia there's a similar history, but there are all these socioeconomic factors that play into it that we don't think about. And we kind of talk about the queer community as if it's this one big community, but the truth is that women and trans people get paid less to the dollar than cis gay men. And so we end up with less spending money. And when gentrification or, a recession comes or something, we're hit harder. And so it was really interesting to look into that and also to start learning more about, that historically there were all these laws that you couldn't even as a woman go into a bar and get a drink without a man. There's structurally, there's so many things that kind of before we even get to why a bar is closing, changed why there aren't even as many that open. So that was really the impulse was less that, I love these dyke bars that I used to always get to go to, and more like what's happening And also, like, what can we do to kind of create a space as, like, the idea of a dyke, who a dyke is, and who would belong. We talk about the sort of the dyke side of the queer spectrum. You know, we don't even have language exactly to describe who the bar is for. And I think that that's the best thing about our community, is it's constantly expanding, and capitalism can't really, like, keep up with that. You know, it's hard to brand in that way. But at the same time, I think it's really important to think about how we can create spaces for everyone who needs them and to be there. So anyway, that's a sort of long answer, but this is something I've thought about, you know, so much. And last night we had a soft opening of the space with the big queer contemporary show at NAS, and there were all these dykey people hanging out in front of the bar, and it made me so happy, you know? Beautiful. So it's kind of like, it's a dyke tradition, I think, of create the space that we need, you know? So yeah.
Wow, interesting, really interesting project.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
Just before we dive into it deeper, I'd like to find out, there is a whole festival from all different type of artists that have put installations on. Tell us a little bit about that. What can people see throughout WorldPride?
So yeah, it's been really wonderful. We've worked really collaboratively on this program together with Sean McIntyre and Sarah Hibbs from National Art School as well. Yeah, members that have been on the scene, a part of Sydney's queer community and dyke histories, and we didn't really want to give anybody a brief that we wanted to ask them to do. Essentially, we went to them and asked, you know, what were your dreams? I mean, yeah, really beautiful collaborative process, hearing all of those ideas. So we'll have the program launched tonight. We have Sydney hip hop and R&B artist BBT performing, which will be incredible. We have Rihanna HT or DJ Aquenta on the decks, having a dance party. Other programs will include Club Chrome. They're going to transform the Dyke Bar into a queer strip club. Yeah. They're an incredible BTQ+ IA pole dance collective that look at you know, the juncture of sex work, but also representing people that often aren't represented spaces. Black Aboriginal Corporation are going to take over for a night as well. So they'll be centering voices of First Nations history that often aren't recognised or included in these histories. So really looking forward to that night. So there's a real mix of you know, from conversations to performances to DJing to tarot reading and astrology nights, karaoke nights.
Incredible. I will say for Sydney too, I've never felt so supported in this project. I've done it a number of times, and this is the first time I've had such an amazing team, because I thought, I'm from the US, like, kind of who am I to be doing this project? How can I make it appropriate for Sydney? And the programming team has just done, like, the most amazing, like, I can't even handle the amazing people that are part of the program. Yeah, so they're the ones that Catherine just mentioned, and then we've also got some of the 78ers are coming in doing a reenactment of Camp, the bar that used to happen. We've got panels on, like, DIY dyke history and queer futures.
Yeah, so kind of thinking about, you know, looking back to the histories and thinking about the lessons that we can learn from this, but also thinking about, you know, do we need dyke bars in the future, and how do we create spaces that are more intersectional?
I think that the thing about the project is we're like, it's not about saying, like, this is we don't have an agenda in doing it of, like, we're trying to tell you what we should want or what we should miss that's gone or anything, so much as to really create a space for all these conversations, because it's so complex. And we have spent hours with the team just really talking through, trying to be as sensitive as possible to all the different community stakeholders and concerns. And I mean, if we could, we'd have, like, a year-long program. There were so many, but we did our best to kind of have a real variety, so that as many different people could be part of it. And also, what I love is that UNSW was able to secure grant funding so that everything is free in terms of accessibility for the community, and everyone is paid.
Sounds super inclusive.
That's
and
what we're going
there is such a variety there. So talking about inclusivity and your decision to call Dyke Bar, why did you choose the word dyke?
Thought about that. Well, for one, I think dyke for me has a sort of politic to it. Like, for example, like, I call myself a dyke. My pronouns shift between they and she, and I don't know if there was another word that doesn't exist, I'd probably use that. And the genders of the people I date really vary. So for me, dyke is more of like, it's like honoring the history of all of the lesbians and dykes who have kind of done the foundational setting and all of the work to be able to let, like, people like us be here today, and I am so grateful for that. And also there's a sort of it's kind of like the difference between sometimes using the word gay or queer. Queer has a sort of like a political or a critical commentary with it that feels different. So for me, that's kind of the word that I felt almost like is less attached to gender in a way. This is sort of amorphous space that we're in. So it felt important to kind of honor that history, and also specifically because I am trying to start basically widening the conversation, because I feel like I see that cis gay men, who are also losing their spaces sometimes, but tend to have whole neighborhoods and blocks and apps and all of these things, and aren't doing the work to be inclusive. I don't see them nearly as much, and they're also not asked to do the work as much, even though they have resources to share. So it felt important to kind of acknowledge, we're talking about this sort of dykey end of the spectrum, and we've done a lot of work, though, in all of the programming to talk about, like, we use the word dyke in a really expansive sense, and we're working on making some t-shirts that say dyke adjacent, because there are a lot of people who identify as trans or non-binary who also feel very connected to dyke culture, and at some points talk about the need to separate themselves from it, or they feel pushed out of it, and it's so important that they're also part of the community. So that's why it's by saying dyke too, it's like an opportunity to kind of needle a conversation and to talk about what that means and what that looks like. So yeah, that's why I chose that. And dyke as opposed to lesbian, because I also like dyke feels like it's a reclaimed slur, and that's also a little bit of a, like, we're reclaiming space, we're reclaiming history, and all of that. Yeah.
It kind of goes hand in hand with the time when the lesbian bars, dyke bars, were active and really successful.
Yeah.
That was when lots of girls called themselves identified as dyke. There was really not much more.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me.
Yeah. It's funny. I spent some time at the Lesbian History Archives, and I don't know if people in Australia know this, but Jo Nessel, who's from the US, who helped start the Lesbian History Archives, actually lives with her partner in Melbourne, and she's like a magical being that I appreciate so much. But I spent time in the History Archives looking through old journals and things, and I found one that was like, it was basically like, F you, I'm not a lesbian, I'm a dyke. And then the next page was like, F you, I'm a dyke, not a lesbian. And I was like, we've been fighting around language and these things for so long. And it was interesting because I think that's one other part of the project that I've learned is that, there are things in the queer community right now that I think there's misogyny in ways that we don't talk about, femphobia, but also misogyny. And if I see this moment in time, I could feel sad about those things, similar to, like, historically, if I look at second wave feminism, there's a lot of amazing work done there, and there were a lot of problems, and if you look at any moment in queer history, you'll end up with this, you can feel like it's maybe like it's a bummer sometimes. Like, there's amazing things, and then there are parts where you're like, ugh. But I started to really understand our community's history in a longer arc, and understanding that we have these big moments of groundbreaking. We make a bunch of space, we claim a lot of things, and then in that we mess up, and we learn from those mistakes, and then the next generation comes in and fills in. And so that's something that's been really important to me about the project too, is to thinking about the future archive. So the conversations we're having now, the next generation will look at and hopefully love some of the things we've done, and also be like, you guys weren't thinking about this other thing, and that thinking about ourselves in that larger arc, I really feel like is a beautiful way to understand the way that we grow and learn as a queer community.
Talking about intergenerational aspect of it, how was last night? I mean, it was a soft launch. I don't know who was invited, but were they young ones, older ones?
There was a mix.
Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah. There were some queer elders. Although somebody called me a queer elder the other day, I was like, "What's an elder? I don't know." But there were definitely older people, and then there were some teenagers who were like kind of doing, sexy photo shoots, and it was really cute. I was watching them through the window. So there was a real spectrum, and that's also always been a sort of secret part of the project too, because there can be these sort of generational breakdowns of understanding of what queerness is and how it looks. And that's so sad to me, because we're all on the same team ultimately, and we all can learn from each other, to bring different generations into the same space. And I feel like I'm kind of in between two pretty different generations in some ways. And so the first time I did it, we had people in their 70s and 80s talking about what it was like to get thrown in jail for not wearing 3 pieces of gender appropriate clothing on random, and I think for the younger people there, it was really important to listen. And something that I always, my little soapbox that I can get on and say is that, you know, out of all the identities that we share and that we don't share, the only one that we all have in common if we stay alive is we'll all be old, you know? So the way that we think about how we treat our elders and honor them, I feel like is so important for all of us, you know? So I'm really trying to develop spaces too where, you know, older and younger people, I mean, I benefit so much from what I call the baby queers, but the young queers in my life, you know? And I think the more that we can create space for all of us to share will really, I don't know, is really important, transformative work. Yeah.
So this show has been where? You said 8 times you've done the installation?
It was 8 times, yeah, which is well, because when I started it because I was lonely and I wanted a place to go and find my people, and I thought no one cared. And then we had a line out the, like 1,000 people RSVP for a tiny little space that normally didn't bring more than 40 people, and like a line around the block. And I was like, what just happened?
This
like I've never,
yeah.
As an artist, if you ever get to hit on a note where you can really serve something for your community, then I feel so lucky. So we did that, and that was in a scrappy little gallery called Wayfarers that is an amazing community. It's no longer here in Brooklyn. And then I did it at Pulse Art Fair afterwards, which is a very fancy sell kind of art fair world. And we had to do a lot to make sure it was inclusive and all the queers could get in for free. But that was really good because, you know, in 4 days of the fair being up, we had several thousand people view it, and straight people had to go to the Dyke Bar to get their drinks. And it was fun to watch them be like, and it's like, yeah, now it's your turn. You know, like we switched the power dynamic. And then let's see, I got to do it at the University of Southern Maine with this amazing women and gender studies professor named Wendy Chapkus, and we had a bunch of oral history from Maine. And then I did it at the Wattis Institute of Contemporary Art with this wonderful curator, Yomna, and the San Francisco Museum of Art and Design. I'm missing one there. And then I was just going to say, and then the whole thing is, Jose de Silva, this wonderful curator at UNSW, brought the project in. He saw it at the Wattis in San Francisco. He brought the project, and I was supposed to come here for a month and get to meet all these queers in Sydney, and I was so excited to come to Australia. And then I was supposed to come in April 2020, and it was just like, you know,
lockdown. Happened. So we still went forward with the installation based on, you know,
meetings
instructions
on
from Macon,
Zoom.
A lot of Zooming.
Yeah.
But it was very much a eulogy for that
It was
time
much more
because,
of a sad.
You know, it was, you know, lockdown. We weren't getting, you know, as many people through, and because that community engagement and activation is such an integral part of the project. You know, the online talks that we were doing just didn't really hit the same. So
it's not the same.
So lucky we thought, you know, WorldPride was such a perfect opportunity to engage with all of the audiences that will be coming.
It's so much better ultimately,
and like so amazing that we can actually be here, making the work and meeting the people that are engaged.
I know. I was like, I didn't realize how much I'd set myself up to be able to meet all of the most babely people in Sydney in a short period of time. I was like, oh, this is an accidental plus to the project. Yeah, so it's been great.
So what are the dates for the festival, festival, and specifically then for the
so launching today, Friday 17th of February. So the installation will be open for people just to come in and view, play a game of pool, look at the archival material between 9 to 5, Monday to Saturday. Yeah. And then we'll be activating the bar from 5 to 10 p.m, Tuesday to Friday. So 17th of Feb until the 4th of March.
Except one night, which is different, which is Monday the 20th.
Yes,
I believe.
It's coming Monday.
Club Chrome, that's when they are going to come and turn it into a strip club. Yes, I can't wait to see them crawling on the bar. I think it's going to be amazing. Yeah. So Monday's the one alternative. And we have, you can check out the full program, but also we have a cruising night on Thursday night this week for anyone who's just looking to meet other babes. So that's also it's an open night.
So there's a kind of nice balance of more high energy nights, but then also nights just for connections to chill in the space and to learn.
But every night is a theme, right? You've got something on every night.
Yeah, can we remember all of them in order? It might be hard. So there's
the launch tonight. Club Chrome,
Black Dot.
Takeover.
Yes. What's Wednesday?
Wednesday Camp, Women's
Cam is
Night,
the recreation of
that's
Camp.
when they would do
Yes.
the night in the 70s.
I
Then
know,
we've
love
got
Thursday night's cruising.
Friday night is tarot readings,
Yeah.
astrology.
Tarot and astrology
and
readings.
Dyke's on Mike's karaoke.
Yes. Oh, it's on the same night?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is the same night.
That's a double.
That's going to be a wild night.
special one.
With Eulogy, who's amazing. I think that's going to be great.
That's going to be really fun. Then the next week, we've got Tuesday is gallivanting and Mistress Tokyo, talking about BDSM and consent and care.
Yes.
The Wednesday will be a two-part panel discussion.
Yeah.
That will feature Penelope Benton talking about Red Rattler, Georgina Abrahams talking about Lesbian Space Project, and Joy New from The Bearded Tit. Then the second panel will have Kelly Desart-Smith, Megan Holloway, and
Kelly
Taper.
So
yes, lots of names to remember.
You can remember all of this.
I know, it's wild. Yeah, totally. And that one I'm excited about because when we're talking, that one's about like sort of history of dyke cultures here in Sydney. What worked, what didn't, and then this younger generation of kind of queer spaces in the future. I'll really think that through. I'm excited for that.
And then Thursday night, Jazz Money's leading a poetry
amazing poetry
night, which will be beautiful.
That's going to be great.
And then we'll have our finissage party, which we've titled Dyke Decadence.
Yes.
That will have performances from David Derriere, Drag King Poppy Chulo, Glamour Boy Sexy Galaxy, and DJ from Crescendo. So
it's going to be
really,
great.
really exciting program.
I'm really excited.
Sounds absolutely.
I'm a little bit like, I'm not worthy. And this is amazing. There's so many good people. So,
Wow, fantastic. So, where will the installation be next?
I don't know. We're trying to figure. I feel like we're trying to figure that out. And I just kind of what I found is that each time we do it, someone sees it and goes, "Oh, we need this for our community," and then it kind of goes from there. So, so we'll see. Yeah.
We shall see. Well, thank you so much for coming in. All the best with it.
Thank you so much.
Listening to Queer Conversation, your podcast for all things queer. My name is Silke Bader. Until next time.